UConn women play tonight on FS1 versus Iowa State. Sarah Strong versus Audi Crooks. Let's get it on.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we dive into today's show, just want to take a moment to say thank you to all of you. We are grateful for everyone that listens. This podcast has grown so much in the last 9 months. It's because of fans like you who value great UConn content. We're proud to say we're the only daily podcast covering UConn men's and women's basketball, the basketball capital of the world. And we're thrilled to bring you the coverage you deserve. So to show that gratitude, we're giving back. We're donating 10% of our revenue to Husky Ticket Project, helping send kids to UConn games. We're also making monthly donations to Bleeding Blue for Good, supporting NIL initiatives that make a difference for us. If you're enjoying the show, take a moment to subscribe, follow, leave a review wherever you listen. Thanks again for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Okay. This game tonight, 8:30. I'll be live afterwards. And so just, make sure you're ready for that. But this really is going to come down to, I hate to say it because there's a lot of players that are involved in a single game. But to me, the single biggest matchup of this game against Iowa State is someone like Sarah Strong, whose no moment has been too big for her. 10 games into her season, she's the first freshman phenom, has been nothing but short of spectacular, averaging just over 16 points, 56% from the field, 8.2 boards, 3.6 assists, 2.3 steals, which is incredible for her size. She's already earned 4 Big East Freshman of the Week. I've started to tweet that's an evergreen award. They might as well just give it to her every week. 4 of the last 6 weeks, seamlessly evolving from a blended player to absolute game changer. So why do I preface it by saying that? Because Tuesday's clash in the Basketball Hall of Fame showcase at the Mohegan Sun. If you're there, make sure every time I've ever been to the Mohegan Sun, test this theory out tonight. If you're there tonight, go to the roulette table, take, $5, $10, $15 and put it on either red 16 or red 21. So guarantee you win. If you don't, you can send me a bill. No, but have a great time tonight if you're there. It's a fantastic event, fantastic arena. Pretty cool to be able to gamble a little bit, go to a nice restaurant while you're at the basketball tonight. But they face their toughest test in terms of the interior presence with Audi Crooks. If you don't know who Audi Crooks is, look her up. Literally just do a Google search of her and you'll be like, wow. And I don't mean that to be like mean or facetious. She's just big. She's a big gal. She is like when you would watch when Shaquille O'Neal came into men's basketball and he just was so much bigger than everybody. And she really is. She is as wide a body as I've seen on the women's side of the ball in terms of how she moves space, right? And she's the real deal. She's not just a big gal. She is absolutely skilled. She's averaging 21.6 points, 8.1 rebounds while shooting a blistering 60% from the field. And if you thought Strong's poise under pressure was rare, Crooks is kind of a clone. She's cut from that same cloth. She dropped 31-10 in a narrow loss to Iowa last week, followed that with her third 30-point game of the season. So what does that mean? It means that we are going to be in for a fight tonight. It's kind of the opposite of what we faced with Notre Dame. And I think Iowa State is talented. They're not as polished as Notre Dame because Notre Dame was an older team. But because they've also dropped in the rankings. They were ranked high early to start the year. We thought this was going to be a top 15, top 20 matchup. Iowa State is out. Our own Emily Adams, our friend who's an AP voter, said that, she had them out in her poll. So we trust her. I think she does a good job with that. But this is going to be the centerpiece matchup. UConn's defense is going to hinge on keeping her contained. Gino Auriemma knows it all too well. I think he joked about, like, one of his comments was, I wish we had her, right? I think a lot of people wish they had her, because if UConn had her presence in the paint, there would not be a team that could stop. Could you imagine the duo when you watch Audi Crooks tonight? If it's your first time watching her play, the duo of her and Sarah plus Paige plus maybe a healthy AZ and Aubrey Griffin coming back, that'd be tough. But this isn't fantasy land or fantasy football world. That's the type of level of respect, though, that Crooks is commanding from not only players but coaches. And UConn's collective size is going to have to try to make her get off her spot. If she gets the ball too deep, it's over. They're going to have to help on defense. And I think this is where we talked about this last week and also on Monday or yesterday with Emily. Will defensive lapses be a part of this game? I don't think UConn is going to struggle as much against Notre Dame, against Iowa State as they did against Notre Dame. But if Audi Crooks feasts inside, and what if Sarah has a nightmare scenario where she picks up 2 quick fouls? Then we're in trouble, because then you have to go to Jana, who isn't as big as Audi, and she's a little taller. But I don't know. This one is tricky because Iowa State shouldn't be as big a threat as they are to UConn, because there are things that you worry about, and I think proactively having Sarah guard her and try to force her to catch the ball further out than she probably wants to is going to be the key tonight. And maybe a little bit of coming down from the guard positions and like trying to knock the ball away. But I think Gino may end up need some big minutes off the bench, even throwing ice on her initially, just so that Sarah stays away from fouls, because she's so important on both sides of the floor. This is where I think another situation comes into play. I want to see Ice Brady grow into that enforcer role tonight. Be tough, be physical. If you pick up fouls, who cares? That's part of your role on this team. Okay. So look, we're gonna go on to the next topic coming up after the break. Can UConn pick up their shooting in this game? We'll find out, because this is just one of 2 tough games this week coming up on the slate. You're locked on. It's that time of year. The college football playoff is back, and with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT Sports coverage of the college football playoff begins December 21st, starting with the college football playoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern, leading into our first matchup, the Southern Methodist University Mustangs, SMU, battling the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon. Then the Clemson Tigers look to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch College Football Playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. We're back on Locked on UConn. Gino Auriemma was quoted in an article saying that we have to be aggressive with our threes against Georgetown. UConn found its shooting, and it found kind of a groove after an ice cold night at Notre Dame. Now, obviously, the circumstances are different, right? I don't think that ever gets enough context or volition. Against Georgetown, a team that doesn't play the type of defense that Notre Dame does. 7 Huskies hit at least 1 3-pointer. Paige Beckers was 3 of 4, I believe, or 2 of 3. She hit multiple behind the arc. I think that balance is going to be crucial against Iowa State, but will it continue? Sorry, I'm yawning because I went out with my wife last night. She had her holiday party, and we had a great time, but I'm getting old. And so if you see me yawn a few times in this podcast, it's because going out late on a Monday night is not for 43-year-olds anymore. But look, the Cyclones know their strength lies with Crooks inside. So if UConn shooters can make them pay for the outside stuff, it opens everything else up, especially for Sarah Strong and for Ice Brady. Maybe Janelle Alfie can get some inside game going. But I also feel like, too, the opposite of the Sarah Strong, Audi Crooks battle is, who does Crooks guard? Is she exclusively on Ice Brady? Because as big as Audi is, she's not that fast. She's slow-footed, and if Sarah is guarded by her, it's an automatic mismatch. Like, I would love to see them try to put either Paige and Sarah in pick and roll, or if it's Ice, try to get someone to try to switch out and get Audi on anybody that can go by her, and they can exploit that all day. Like, unless they go into zone. which is also kind of a recipe for disaster because if UConn starts to hit threes like they have against lesser teams this year, and make no mistake about it, Iowa State, although talented, is similar to like the North Carolina team that we played. UConn should handle them. I think Emily said it the best on the show yesterday, which is I could see this being like a 20-point lead, but then having it kind of drop back down because you can't take away the type of team that this Iowa State has put together. But because Iowa State shooters like transfer standout Kenzie Hare and Lily Hansford have struggled, but Hare shot 42.5% from three at Marquette last year. So even though she's down this year, shooting under 30%, there's something about when teams play UConn, they tend to shoot a little better. It's like the light bulb goes on. So, if Iowa State's guards get hot, this could turn into kind of a 3-point shootout. And I think UConn will need to stay sharp. I would love to see Ashlyn Shade get more consistent behind the arc. KK is not going to be a great shooter, but she's good at driving to the hoop and continue to attack that way, probing the defense. If anything, she should be trying to probe the defense to kick out, find cutters to the lane, find another team maybe lapsing on defense other than our own. And let's see if Morgan Shelley can put back-to-back games together where she plays some really standout minutes. I'm looking for her to step up as well. And listen, Ali Zabal came into this team as like their 3-point specialist, and she still has the green light. It's not like Gino's saying I'm glad he's making sure that she's reinforced with that. She is an absolute knockdown shooter. She is not shooting the ball well right this year. Maybe she's just nervous as a freshman or she's rushing, whatever. Shooters shoot, as the saying says, and I really think if she gets minutes, I'm waiting for that breakout game where she goes like 5 for 5, something crazy like that. But so what I'll be looking for, does UConn maintain their high volume approach from deep, as it should, because this is a new style of basketball these days. Even if you shoot it 30% from three one game, but you shoot 40 of them, you're going to make 10 or 12, 13 of those. So that's a good number. You can't play a Notre Dame or a South Carolina and only hit 2 or 3 3-pointers. It's just not possible. So even if shots aren't falling early, you got to keep shooting. And defensively, can the Huskies keep Iowa State shooters off the line while also keeping Crooks under control inside? These are going to be the keys to the game. But like I said, look for Morgan Shelley, maybe Ali Zabal to have a nice game tonight. When we return, last segment of the podcast, UConn's Frontcourt needs to step up because this team is truly, truly all about the lady in the middle. So we're going to talk about that coming up after this. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. It's our good friends at PrizePicks. UConn Nation, this is Mark Zanetto talking to you here. I want to tell you about PrizePicks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. I've been using PrizePicks this season, and let me tell you, last week, best way to turn your sports knowledge into real money. I picked Baker Mayfield for more than 2.5 touchdowns, for Devonta Adams for more than 75 yards, and that was easy money. He had 198 and 2 touchdowns. And the whole process took less than a minute to lock in. PrizePicks makes daily fantasy simple. You just pick more or less on player projections. That's it. This season, you can win up to 1,000 extra money on your lineups. It's 1,000 times if you're not familiar with that lingo. And they've got fast, safe withdrawals, sometimes in as little as 15 minutes when your picks hit. Plus, the holiday season is huge right now in PrizePicks. They're giving away 2 free picks in December and $30 million in rewards during the Picksmas celebration. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly after you pay your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Okay, last episode. Some people might like that. Last segment of the podcast. We've already talked about Audi Crooks and Sarah Strong, what that matchup will look like. Morgan Shelley, Ali Zabal, maybe making some noise tonight. You know what I love about this episode? I love Paige Beckers, and I could do an entire show about her every day. But I love that we're not talking about her right now. And I think that's because I think what Gino has built is based around the players to augment and to support her talent, right? And also Sarah Strong is going to be absolutely no slouch as time goes on, where she's going to be filling those shoes of Beckers, as custom as they are. By the way, if anyone bought those shoes, let me know how they feel. They look cool. I would love to buy a pair at some point. Christmas is coming. If you guys want to buy me a gift, feel free to send me a pair of Paige Beckers shoes. But Iowa State's size and interior dominance, this game is where UConn's front court depth becomes absolutely critical. We don't have Aaliyah Edwards anymore. We have Sarah Strong. We have Janelle Elfie. And we have Ice Brady. So who's going to be the veteran leader in the paint that sets the tone? Is it going to be Ice, even though she's not much of a veteran? She's been around. She'll be tasked with playing physical, no nonsense defense on Crooks. And I've been saying that from the start. Some people are resistant to take on their roles. I don't know if that's what Ice is thinking, but she is. I've said it. I've also said it from the beginning, not just because she has a cool name, but I believe in Ice. I think she can be a really good player. So I really feel like she's capable of more. But right now, what Gino wants and what he probably needs is for someone to take that mantle of like, listen, I'm the defensive stopper, and especially when you're playing like a force like Crooks. But Edwards isn't here anymore. So you can't bank on her. She's not walking through that door. Remember Rick Pitino said that? Larry Bird's not walking through that door. Aaliyah Edwards isn't walking through that door. Players like Ice Brady and Janelle Elfie will need to step up to give Gino meaningful minutes, because it can't just be Sarah playing Crooks the whole game. I think Ice can be that spark defensively in short bursts, but I do think that she needs to be more engaged defensively so that leads to maybe runouts. You can beat Crooks down the floor, right? Be in transition, get some runouts so you can get some easy buckets and tire her out. Okay. On the Iowa side, the lack of production from their supporting cast has been one of the reasons why they've lost some games. Fifth-year guard Emily Ryan, normally a three-point sharpshooter, is off to a slow start this season. If she or Hare finds the rhythm, Iowa State suddenly becomes a much bigger threat, and they are more similar to Notre Dame in that respect, not as dynamic, so don't jump in my mentions. What I'll be watching here, though, is can UConn's front court really stay disciplined defensively without fouling? Because if also same thing can happen on the Iowa State side. If Crooks gets a little too aggressive with Sarah or whoever else, if she picks up fouls on offensive rebounding, it can entirely change the landscape of the game, and UConn blows this team out. But if she stays engaged, she stays on the floor at all times, I think it's going to be a tough game initially, but I think UConn's going to pull ahead. I think that's a limit second chance opportunities, obviously avoid unnecessary fouls, and I believe they'll have the clear edge. It's still a test. They're not ranked, but they have been this year. It's still a Big 12 team. Big 12 is tough this year on the women's side. I think, remember, I'll be live after the game. That's why we're doing more of a truncated episode, because I'll see you again here in a few hours. We'll talk. If I'm probably yawning them too, because it's gonna be like 10:30 before we start. But we'll talk about what worked, what didn't, and what this game means for UConn moving forward. Be sure to tune in. Send your questions, if any, to my Locked On UConn X page, or you can send me messages on Instagram if you want. Jump in when it's all over and join the conversation. I've been looking forward to this game and the USC game all year. Notre Dame is always kind of circled on the calendar for obvious reasons, but it's cool to play these out of conference games in pseudo neutral, also home sites like Mohegan Sun. It's going to bring a lot of eyeballs to these programs. I think I have to go back to what Emily Adams said, and I wrote something in my Substack, Basketball Capital of the World. If you haven't subscribed to that, go check it out. Just something I do separate from Locked On. But regardless, I wrote an article saying, talking about how I do think it's ridiculous that people are jumping down Gino's throat for, his, he can't coach anymore, or some ridiculous statement like that. Emily crystallized it so perfectly on Monday, and I couldn't agree with it more. And I think Iowa State's a perfect example. Iowa State doesn't have a rich history of women's basketball, but they're good and they've gotten recruits because of the investment that's being made and the opportunity that's being offered out to former players, now coaches of these organizations. I always call them that because that's what they are. They're basically semi-professional organizations. Kids get paid now. So there's opportunity everywhere now. And there wasn't when Gino started in Chris Daly 40 years ago. So when they built this thing, they were building it against kind of nobody. And then, so that's why it was such an upstart thing when they started beating the Tennessees of the world. And then, Tennessee fought back. I mean, we could do the whole history over again. But the idea is, please don't get frustrated if this team loses a few games against quote unquote teams that they shouldn't lose to, because college basketball has more parity now than it ever has. Women's and men's. More so on the men's side because of the history of that. But the women are catching up in that regard, So, fun fact. It took, I think 100 and something tournaments for a 16 seed to beat a 1 seed on the men's side. It happened first on the women's side. I believe Harvard beat Stanford something like 15, 20 years ago. Look that up. So, look, there's still more time to go to catch up to the men in terms of the parity, 1 through 30 of the of teams, but these teams are talented all over the place and have to show some respect and understand that none of these games are going to be 50-point blowouts like they used to be. So unless you're playing a Big East game, which sucks to say. This has been another episode of Locked On UConn. I'm Mark Zanetto, asking you to stay locked on, stay connected, and to remember it's not just about getting it done, it's about doing it in a way it can't be done any better. That's our goal every day. Don't forget, go Huskies.